hello, darling, and welcome to the Just Jax podcast. Hi, I'm Jax, and I help you find the can in your cat. When we challenge our cats, miracles happen, because when I challenged mine of I can't draw, I can't paint, and I can't color, imagine my surprise when I discovered what I can do is create a 21-foot garden mural that was recently featured not once but twice on the front page of our local newspaper. Next up, I challenge the I'm no author, no artist, and no cursive writing specialist, but what I can do is self-publish 3 books for my kick-ass cursive writing curriculum, Crack the Cursive Code. I'm a Jax of all trades, but what I master in is helping ordinary people like me to do extraordinary things through laughter, tears, life-changing stories, because metaphors are my jam. Together we can find the can in your can'ts, the do's in your don'ts, and the wills in your won'ts. I'm so excited for you. Let's go. Well, hello, my darlings, and welcome to the Just Jax podcast. Happy birthday to me. Happy birthday to me. Happy birthday, dear. Ooh, Jacqueline Jax. Happy birthday to me. Yes, this podcast is going to air on my birthday, and that has really had me do some introspection, as birthdays could do. Also, this birthday is the last year of my 50s, and I will be turning 60 next year. And again, that's a big birthday to some, and that is one for me too. It has definitely caused me to take a little bit more of an inventory and make some minor adjustments. And we're going to talk about a little bit about that in our episode. And this episode is all about birth. We're going to talk about my birth story. And despite being called an alien, I had 2 children of my own, as well as I have now, despite being in my menopausal years, I have still given birth to other creations, and they have come into the form of books and other fun creative projects like my mural. And we're going to go through all of those. But let's start with a birth story. It's interesting, as I go into my birth story, it never ceases to amaze me on how many layers we have to go through when we are working through healing ourselves and what perceptions we have of the world. So my birth story is one that you would, if you wanted to have a Scar Wars champion. And what I mean by a Scar Wars champion is that if you have a hierarchy of scars, and there are certain situations where women or men go through horrific experiences and they can get scars from them, and they are Scar Wars champions. Whether or not they continuously tell you they're champions or they keep that on the down low is up to them, but there is such a thing as a Scar Wars champion. In regards to birth, my mother is one of those birth horror stories, Scar Wars champions, and I am the result of that birth. She loves to tell the story on how I was a nightmare because I refused to come out. Her water broke on the 14th of September, and usually within a few hours things progress unless there needs to be some type of intervention. Well, despite intervention and everything that they wanted to try, I was not coming out. There was no going out for me. My mom would say I put my arm out there, my leg out there. She even stated it felt like I stood on my one foot on each hip bone, going, no way. I am not going out there. Not only no, but hell no, not doing it. So finally, the only way that they could have a birth for me to happen and progress was to have the doctor pull me out with forceps. And that is how I was born. So there was no Jax decided, there was no any of that. And it really sometimes gives me food for thought on how my life started. First of all, I was against my choice, per se, of when to make my birth announcement. So my day and time and everything that I was born at was a intervention time instead of one that was, some babies come when unexpected all on their own, blah, blah, blah. Well, there was none of that for me. Mine was intervened. So it fed right into my man hater thing that a man decided that when I was going to be born because he pulled me out. But it was later that when I discovered that I had a fear, this unknown fear from somewhere, that it especially manifested itself when I was on top of stairs where the stairs had an open back. And I remember as a child, even now, the stairs in my home, and even the stairs in the condo that my mom lives in now, that they have an open back, and it would freak me out. And I always felt that there was something going to grab my arm and my leg and pull me out of there. And I'm like, oh, I wonder sometimes if some of these experiences we have in our birth story, that we have no idea where or how to put them into context when we're older. All we know is this, there's this fear involved in it. But when you start to put it into context that that was what was happening, you can go, oh, okay, well, then there is no reason to be afraid. If that was actually what that fear was based in, then there is no need to actually act as if something's going to go wrong with the stairs, because I can simply say, well, that was my birth story, and there's no one going to be pulling me by my head, arms, or legs now. I can I have a good enough time. I have a It's a full-time job for me to make sure I make it up and down the stairs in one piece. Never mind having to worry about a third party getting involved or anything like that. So now I can realize that there is no need, because I can remember that, well, that makes total sense of why I would feel that way, and put it into context. And once the child realizes that it's safe now because of a misunderstanding, and a legit misunderstanding, I was abruptly taken from an environment that I would feel would be safe, and really was having a bit of confusion of what to do. They did do the right thing for me, but my perception and my takeaway from that experience has left me some in regards to men. I've been powerless, that they're the ones to make the decision. And I'm really questioning sometimes now, like, ooh, maybe that's something to have a real, like, mental picnic and have fun unpacking that a little bit further. For I never gave too much thought to my birth story other than realizing that I was a nightmare baby. Flash flash Fast forward. Wow, that was tough to say. Fast forward, and my birth story really never played that much part to play until I became pregnant. And I decided I wanted to have my baby at home. I maybe in some way, some form, I equipped all of that nastiness about my birth story to do with the hospital and them intervening, and the medical people saying these horrible things, and they're the ones that were thinking there was something wrong with me. And who see that there's something wrong with me? Maybe that was something from back there. But there's something wrong with me, and all that came from the medical staff. And when I found out that I could have my child at home without any of the medical intervention, I was all for that. And my mother was freaking the fuck out. Not only did she have my experience, which was her experience. It was her reality, right? This actually happened to her. It wasn't something she watched on TV. It wasn't something she witnessed secondhand. This is firsthand her horrific experience about that. Her having to deal with all these people telling her there was something wrong with her baby. All these people, having to be in labor and being exhausted for 3 days. She's the one that had to feel and look like roadkill. I just was a participant along for the ride. But when she found out I was pregnant, my mother was freaking out, because not only was I going to have a home birth, but my midwife was an hour away from me to travel. I was in the middle of nowhere. The closest medical facility to me was a half hour away, and the closest neighbor to me was a mile away. So I was in complete but nowhere, in the middle of nowhere. And my mother was freaking out, because she's like, well, look what I had to go through with my experience. And she was a nurse as well. So her experience had a lot of firsthand knowledge of what could go wrong in births, because she worked in a hospital as well. And she worked in the nursery. And there was she had catalogs of experiences for her that would confirm her reason to be afraid. Let's put it that way. where I had zero of those experiences. And sometimes ignorance is bliss in situations like this, because I went to my midwife, and my midwife was the first midwife in Alberta that delivered twins, and she had at home, and she had delivered quite a few sets of twins, and she had thousands of births that went perfectly well with her, fantastic experiences. And I went to her and I told her about my horrific birth story, and she looked at me and she says, "You have the right to decide what your birth is going to be like, because you are a different person than your mom." And I went, "What do you mean?" She goes, "There there is no guarantee that you are going to have the same birth as your mom, or that you had yourself, because you and your mom are two completely different people, and you and your mom are in different situations." Well, as it worked out, the day that I was to have my delivery, I had a life-changing thing happen the day before that really, really impacted me and shook me to the core emotionally. And the next day I was by myself, recovering from what happened with the day before, and it was my husband's first day at a new job, and I clearly was by myself. And my midwives were an hour away, and there was no warning, for I was 10 days early for my birth. So 3 o'clock in the afternoon comes along, and I have this horrific pain. And once you've given birth, you know what it feels like when your water breaks. It can be a sharp pain, or your first contraction. And mine was like that. It was like a needle poke. It went straight in, and out came this whoosh of water and or liquid. And I'm like, oh. And I'm like, well, why is this happening? It's 10 days early. Now, granted, I did have that huge emotional thing happen the day before. So maybe this was brought on by that, but I'm like, wow, this is 10 days early. It's really quite bizarre. I'm not understanding why this is happening. So I call my midwife and I call my mom, and my midwife is like, "Well, you don't have to worry, because let me know when they're about 7 minutes apart." And I thought, okay, I can do that. And I called my mom, and my mom lived 2.5 hour drive away. And so they would have to drive to be there for the birth. And my mom wanted to be there. And she decided to bring my dad. And I really had no interest in him being around, period. But again, I had no voice at that time, and whatever my mom needed was best, and my mom needed my dad. He was what was she needed, and so they were on their way down. And again, I'm realizing now that for myself, everything, my mantra, I'm the type of person where everything works out for me. Everything worked out for me. But at the time, it felt like utter chaos. As time progressed, I had thrown up once because the pain was so bad. And I was by myself. I had phoned my friend who was supposed to be my support for my labor. She had 7 births at home. That was her day. She decided to take a mental day and didn't call me back, and she ignored her phone all day. So I called another woman. She ended up coming over. And things progressed really quickly. My husband came home about 5:30, and I contacted my midwife, and I'm like, "Lady, I'm at 7 minutes apart." And this was 2 hours later. And she's freaking out because she was expecting hours and hours as well, just like with my mom, days and days. My mom hadn't even left the city yet, and I was already at 7 minutes apart. So, and when I told my mom my water broke, she thought she had all day. So my dad stopped at the store and they got some stuff, and they really took their time coming up because they figured they would have enough time. I had a water birth I planned. I had all the things to make my birth as quick as possible. My midwife got there at 8 o'clock, and by 8:30, my son was born. So my birth for my oldest son was from 3 o'clock when my water broke, and 5.5 hours later, he was born. And boom. And my mom was so disappointed because she was sure that I was going to have a nightmare birth just like her. But I really did believe that I could have a birth that just like my character, in, out, let's get it done, and it's over. So fun little caveat in regards to my son coming those 10 days earlier. It worked out that my son was born on my brother's birthday, the brother who had passed the year before. And it's fascinating too, because it was almost like my brother was reincarnated to a degree, because my son is like a twin brother to him, except for he has blue eyes and darker hair, but they have the same body shape, they have the same character to some degree, and they also have uh the same curly hair. And it freaked out a cousin one time, because my cousin was at a family reunion that my son was partaking in, and my cousin had a little bbit too much to drink, and my son was walking to him and the son was behind him, and my cousin thought he saw my brother and was starting to hyperventilate, and my mom luckily was there. She's like, no, this isn't your cousin, this is Jackie's son, this is her oldest son, this isn't Jeff. And so he had to really calm down because of how much my son looks like my brother. And that has been a very interesting development, having my brother gone and my son in his place. That has crossed a little lines for my mom as well. But my son has benefited from having an extra person to love him, and I am thankful for that. Fast forward 2 years, when I was pregnant with my second son, and I'm sure my mom's ass was chapped with what birth I had with my first son. Because even with her second son, her second child, my brother, that was also a horrible experience for her. She had a really hard set of births. With my second boy, my water broke differently this time. It was more of a trickle. But I had a feeling like I'm housebroken and I already went pee. So why am I leaking? And then I thought, oh, okay. Because I was expecting the stab that happened with my older son. But no, that's not. That's that's clearly, but a different experience was to be had. So then a half an hour later, it leaked again, and I'm like, oh, I better call my mom. So my mom rushed over this time because she figured that she wasn't going to take that chance. And I had moved to the city that she was living in. I had moved to Calgary by then, so it was only a 10-minute drive. She came over and she was there by by 8 o'clock, and by 8 o'clock my contractions were again down to 7 minutes apart, and this was 2 hours later. So I have this rapid, let's get things done. But this time I wasn't having him at home, I was having him in a hospital all the way across town, and this is the city of Calgary. It's a 45-minute drive, and this was at 8 o'clock Monday morning. It was rush hour traffic that we had to make it from the northwest side of town to the southwest side of town. And we made it through, and my contractions were behaving pretty good, but I could tell that it was escalating. And by the time I got my foot on the floor at the hospital, they went into full force, and my son was born at 10:10 that morning. So my contractions started, I guess, but I'd say about 7:30, or if you want to say when my first water broke at 6:30, and then my baby was born at 10:10. I'm going to share something with you that I do with my son for a 10:10, because my younger son is a very sentimental person. He likes to hear about old stories. He likes about old jewelry. He likes to hear tales of his past, etc., and wants to know the people of his past. My older son is not sentimental, where my younger son is. So at 10:10, when he was younger, he would say, well, I'm really not my age until 10:10. So I'm like, okay. So when he was at school, when we were in the same school, it was easy. I would just come into his class at 10:10 and sing him happy birthday, because that's when his birthday started. And then when I moved to the United States, I would call him from there when he was still in high school. I would call him from there and pull him from his class and sing him a birthday at 10:10. And finally, when he turned 18, I'm like, well, once a year isn't enough. So I've created a small little thing for him, and it is to celebrate his birth. And what that is that whenever I see the numbers 10:10 together, I've seen them on a game when I get scored 10 out of 10. I've seen a 10 out of 10 on a TikTok. I've seen 10:10 in sports scores. I've seen it in addresses. I've seen it time on a clock, especially on a clock. When I whip my phone open and it says 10:10, then I take a snapshot of it. I put a little heart on it and I send it to him. That way I send and love to him all the time. And especially at 10:10, I just wanted something that was really special that would make him think of me, that he knew I loved him. I'm still searching for something to do for my older son that would have the same impact, but with my younger son who is sentimental, it is something to celebrate his birth as well. So I hope my birth stories give hope to some, but if you also have experienced a negative birth story, maybe you can also put some of those pieces together and go, oh, that is why, and use that to move forward. Because if you were always afraid of the dark for some reason and you realize that maybe this had something to do with, like for my situation, I was always afraid of stairs and I would kind of avoid them. But now I can. I can go through the stairs and go, well, you know what? Good luck grabbing me. And there's no Day of the Dead or zombies or any aliens or anything like that around at this present moment. So there's no reason for me to put my body through something imaginary any longer, because it was real for me then, but it is no longer real for me now. Now I can take that energy that I put towards fear and put it towards focus, so that I, in my later years, can make sure that instead of running down there in my haste because I'm feeding my fear, I can now put it towards my focus to keep myself safe. I'm the type of person that experiences real stuff. I'm allowing my body to go through what is real. And that fear of being pulled or taken, that energy is no longer relevant, because that was then. And there is no way that that would happen now. So, that being said, let's move into the different forms of birth, because as a woman and as a person, I think, but as a woman, you can give birth to other things. And you can, for we are constantly creating new things. Every 7 years, our cells regenerate and create new cells. So if you've been the same for 7 years, that means that you have basic, or worse, that means you've been keeping the same stuff and feeding yourself the same stuff mentally and emotionally for the same 7 years. So in order to change, that part of it has to be done too. Just like with my birth story, realizing that I no longer have to carry that as a fear. I can now I can now be empowered and claim some of that fear and use it into some of that energy into something else. Since my days of giving birth are over in the physical sense, I can now do something in the mental and emotional sense. And I have done that, especially in the last 3 years. Because in 2022, I gave birth to my Crack the Cursive Code, my cursive writing activity book, and wow, what a birth that has been. And I have learned, I would say, karma's a real bitch. Because the birth of that was, it took me 3 years to get the birth of that, where it took 3 days for my mom for give birth to me. But I had to really pull my head out as well to get that done. And it's also, I'm still a little in the dark with that and how to speak about it. But there is finally a new birth on the horizon about that as well, because I'm beginning to understand who my niche is and who I can help. And I can help people, especially moms, that think cursive is important, and you've done everything, you've done all the right things to help your children know cursive, but there's a very difficult time making it relevant in the day-to-day world in which that they could use it, because if you don't use it, you lose it. And that's where my program comes in. My program is designed to make learning the pangram sentence fun, because the key to my program is the pangram sentence. And if you don't know what a pangram sentence is, it is a sentence that contains every letter of the alphabet. And in cursive, if you have the sentence written out, that is all that's required to give each letter the same amount of practice. Now, because the word the is in the sentence twice, those letters get a duplication, but everything else gets individual attention and simultaneous attention, so that all that's required to keep your cursive writing practice skills up to par is to write out this sentence. My God, if I would have understood what the niche was for this before, because it's very difficult for my program to fight these monster programs like Abeka or Handwriting with Tears, because they have marketing and they have education and they have research and they have all that stuff. And all I have is a solution. All I have present is a solution to the problem that cursive writing is boring. And now what? When we have it and we have no idea what to do with it. So, my two solutions are number one, you get my program and you learn the pangram sentence. And what the pangram sentence does is that it's the ignition to the brain. I am advocating that if homeschoolers and education started with a cursive writing lesson at the beginning of the day, it would start the focus when the focus is fresh. It would build the neurons in the brain that help with the learning. And it would also allow the children to keep a skill that can help them get in touch with their emotional selves in the future. So in 2022, I birthed this solution. In 2023, I realized that there was more problems to solve, and that's where my births have come in. The second one was the left-handed book, and as well as the adventure story that I created. I had it printed in cursive because we have cursive writing everywhere and in all marketing. Chick-fil-A here in the United States uses it right now, and so does Panera, because it means safety. Cursive means emotion. Cursive tells you you can be trusted. It's all about being on a human level and taking the computer out of it. And we are cutting ourselves off at the knees because our children and the generations for the last 10, 15 years have no idea how to read or write it. And so marketing is going to have to take a real change in how we're going to evoke emotions to humans without cursive. So that was born in 2023. And then 2024, I realized that there was, again, we needed to bring the fun back to cursive if we're going to allow that skill to be something that's relevant. And I created a puzzle book. There are 8 different types of puzzles and 11 subjects, and the puzzles range in difficulty because there's there's easy ones where you trace the letters with, then there's word searches in cursive, and those are pretty tough. And then there also is cryptograms, which use capital letters in cursive, and those can be tough too. And so I thought, oh, that'll be great. There's another birth. So I gave birth to triplets, and now I'm in that dirty diaper stage where I'm just like, would you grow the fuck up and do it on your own now? So next birthday, I'll get to report on where my toddlers are at this stage, and we'll see what has come of that. But this year, I'm happy to report there are 2 things that are on my plate right now that I'm birthing. There's going to be another segments of my podcast. I'm going to continue this. I promised myself I would do this for a year. So that's 52 straight weeks. I am now going to be, for next week, will be exactly halfway through. And once I pass halfway mentally, something that does something for me, that I can overcome it once I get past halfway. So that will be coming up in the next future weeks. I've also been called to answer the problem of the lowercase letter B and lowercase letter D reversals. It started out with learning cursive B and D and being able to transition to the printed B and D, but now it is transformed into this big monstrous thing in my mind that is going to be cool as hell, and it's called The Adventure to D lowercase d Park. And I am in the process of creating a song with it and etc. to help people. Once you learn this backseat beat, once you learn my little song, then your BD reversals are a thing of the past. Another one little thing that I'm working on as well is my I'm the type of person. I am looking at how to gather my thoughts on that because I've been asked by quite a few people how to do the mantra, because once they start, they bring it to my attention on how many times they use it and how how it really, really changes your entire mantra game because it's based on proofed stuff already. Final story I'm going to share with you about birth. The first one was my birth and my birth stories. The second ones are the things that I am birthing again to bring outside of myself. But there's also the third level of rebirth, and that is within myself. And this new job that I have taken on is really kicking my ass in that department. And I saw myself earlier this week giving excuses instead of taking a good look at what was actually happening. So let's talk about that. It all starts with I am in a job where there are 4 different types of positions and 3 different types of locations. So each employee has a home location, whether they work in that location or not. So one of my primary jobs is making sure that on their time card, it shows their correct location of where they worked, especially if it's from a different home location. And I made a mistake this week where I put someone at the wrong location. 5 years from now, is that one job, but that one entry going to make a big deal? No. And so I told myself. Next thing you know, I had an employee contact me to let me know that on her time card, one of her future scheduled days was on the wrong day. So instead of having her hours on a Tuesday, I had them on a Wednesday. When I got to the time cards, I would notice my mistake and I would just fix it. But doing that part of my job of the creating the schedule is very difficult for my brain to transfer from one screen to another. It would be easier to do it from paper to the screen, but that is very difficult to do. And this is an area that my brain likes to just go, fuck you, and it's going to do what it wants. Or that's what I believe it feels like anyway. And an error was made where I had the day on the wrong day, the hours worked scheduled on the wrong day. Third incident is that I have to keep track of every minute that an employee is on the clock, and not what they're doing on the clock, but just that they're clocked in and out. If they're late or early, I need to record those minutes. And if they leave the shift early for whatever reason, I have to justify the reasons and code them appropriately. Well, I have, if they are 1 minute late, that is an entry of 0.02. And because in my haste, I was doing it so quickly, it went to 2 instead of 0.02 because the decimal didn't register. So I had 2 hours instead of 1 minute, which is a big deal. But I had another person show to me that I had made these mistakes. Now, in that one, if I wouldn't have caught that, that would have been serious for that employee would have lost 2 hours of pay, but thankfully someone is double checking my work and they caught it and brought it to my attention. The struggle with these little errors are that when I was in grade 2, I had a belief that I could never get past third place. And I had a really good justification for that because if you think about third place, is first place would be 100%, you get everything done correctly. Second place where you get 1 wrong, and third place where you get 2 wrong. So in this case, I got 3 wrong, so I would be at 97%. 97% is pretty fucking awesome, man, and is, to me, I was getting really frustrated with them showing me my 3%. Considering I have 77 employees, I'd say maybe 70 that I rotate through on the week, and we are open 7 days a week. And I do all of those time cards and keep everybody straight, as well as scheduling out of department and all this kind of stuff. And it is a lot to do. That I made 3 small errors, and I was getting really pissed off at my bosses because I'm like, can't you just let those things go? Why is that such a big deal? In regards to the location, for our billing location, they want to know how many hours are allocated to each location and how much staffing and stuff. And I understand that if it is off, that it can make a big difference. But if you look at the year, and if I made one of those transposition errors, would that those 6 hours make that much of a difference in the grand scheme of thousands of hours? The big picture, the answer would be probably no, but they are being brought to my attention on a constant basis, and I'm getting an emotional reaction to them. So I know that this is for me. It was very interesting, though, that when I was talking to a fellow coworker about there, I actually went into the, well, you know what? Maybe I have been fighting with this part of my brain, because I have told myself for years that I have a memory disorder and that I have a difficulty remembering things. And this has been a narrative that I've had for a while. When I took this job, little did I know that my entire work area would be in that area that I deemed myself disabled. And I have been working on this and challenging myself. And I sat there and I even saw myself start to cry and like, well, maybe my brain is just broken and that's what this is all about. And I'm catching myself going, well, maybe I'm just being fucking lazy and refuse to push myself to excellence. That's what the resounding thought came to me. And I thought, oh, maybe that's what I have to give birth to, is a new level for myself, that I could actually push myself to excellence. I still could be beat, but I could get to the highest level for myself, because I've been hiding behind this jacks of all trades business, and that this is maybe and that's what I use, that personality of that jacks of all trades part of it, and use that as a way to hide, because I never wanted to push myself or do the hard work required to get it absolutely right. And that is what is going to be a challenge for me in the next little while. I'm going to challenge that cursive writing is necessary, as a necessary start to your day. It's better than an energy drink, and it costs nothing and it's good for you. I'm going to start with some brain gym and a sip of water and writing out the pangram sentence before I start any of this work that I'm doing. And I am going to set the attention. I'm the type of person that can get it 100% right, because you know what? There are a lot of times in my life that I've gotten things 100% right. And I have gotten 100% on tests, and I have done 100% in handing out assignments, and I have given things to my employer that have done correctly 100%. So, what is it about this area that I am being so resistant in? Why am I punishing myself or shaming myself and keeping that I need to be third place mentality still there? Why am I struggling? And I could be, because right now, according to my employer, I am in third place still, because there's my manager, there's a supervisor, and then there's me in regards to do the time cards. And I'm sucking at third place right now, because I could even be in fourth place if someone was above me, because my attention to detail is lacking. So, a time for a rebirth this new year that I'm looking at for Jax is that it's time for me to see what I want to be this last year of 50. What is it going to look like when I'm 60? Because when I did my time with Brenda Johnston, she showed me who that person is supposed to be, and there needs to be changes in order for me to get there. And I think this 97% in this accepting myself as status quo and only learning what's necessary, there are really some good things about that, but it may be time to have her and being myself born into something else. I want to thank you for spending your time with me, your precious time, and learning all about how you could possibly have a rebirth in your life. You could have a rebirth in regards to something physical, that you finally just get around to getting that thing done and getting it out. Could be purging your closets. I'm going to be doing stuff like that. I just need to rebirth some space in my mind and in my heart and in my home. And that is all part of all the change, and getting out of the cramped area that you know and going into the brand new world that you don't. And they can be just following the passion that you've had in your heart for a very long time. I'm here for it. If you want to get in touch with me and share on how this episode has impacted you, or if you want some assistance with your I'm the type of person statements, you can reach out to me on Facebook or Instagram. or on Reddit at #HeyJax, or my email, justjaxpodcast@gmail.com. And my books, my cursive writing curriculum, is available for quick delivery on Amazon and Barnes & Noble. But if you would like a bundle deal, you can check out my website at crackthecursive.code.com. And with that bundle deal also comes snail mail shipping, because Amazon likes to punish self-publishers when we drop ship. So that will take a slow time for you to get it. But you can also get your PDFs and my Forthwith, Shift, and Loser merchandise on my website as well. I am very excited for you and for me in this new year coming up, and I'm looking forward to hearing what new births are happening for you too. Until then, love you. Jax out.